The wind screamed like a dying beast outside the tent. Snow slammed against the fabric walls, trying to tear through. Jack sat inside, wrapped in a thermal blanket, staring at the small heater in front of him. The planet Zora 7 was colder than Earth's Antarctica, and this storm was the worst in months. He had come here alone, a simple scout mission to map the icy terrain and collect samples. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous, or so he thought. The heater blinked. Power was running low. Jack frowned and tapped the controls. He would have to conserve energy soon. Maybe turn off the lights. Maybe even shut off heat for a while. But then, something strange happened. A soft sound. Knock, knock. Jack froze. He turned his head toward the tent flap. That sound didn't belong to the storm. It was too soft. Too deliberate. A second knock followed. Jack stood up slowly and grabbed his plasma pistol from his belt. No one was supposed to be here. He was alone for 500 miles in every direction. Who's there? He called out, voice firm. No answer. Just a third knock. With one hand on his weapon, he moved to the entrance. Carefully, he unzipped the flap and looked outside. Snow blasted into his face, blinding him for a second. Then he saw her. A figure stood just outside, small, thin, and shaking badly. She had large glowing eyes and skin with a pale violet hue. She looked no older than 16 in human years, though. It was hard to tell with alien species. Her clothes were ripped, barely enough to cover her body. She held her arms tight across her chest, shivering violently. She looked up at him with pleading eyes. Please. Help, she whispered in broken English. Jack hesitated. Every part of his training told him not to do it. Don't trust strangers. Don't let unknown aliens into your camp. She could be a scout, a spy, a trap. But his instinct said something else. She was freezing. She was weak. She was scared. Jack stepped aside and opened the flap wider. Come in quickly. The girl stumbled forward and collapsed just inside the entrance. Jack zipped the tent shut, locking out the cold. He helped her to the heater and wrapped a second blanket around her trembling body. She didn't speak. She just sat there, breathing slowly, her body shaking less with each minute. Her large eyes looked around the tent, at the tools, the food, packs, the scanner, and then at him. Jack kept watching her. Something wasn't right. He had seen alien refugees before. He had helped some. But this girl, she felt different. Not just alien, but out of place. What's your name? He asked gently. She didn't answer. Where are you from? Still no reply. Jack sighed. Look, I'm not going to hurt you. But I need to know if you're running from someone. Are you in danger? Her eyes finally met his. Yes, she said. Quietly, they follow. Who? Jack leaned forward, but she closed her eyes and shook her head. Too cold. Talk later, he nodded. Maybe she needed rest. She was barely conscious when she arrived. Jack opened an energy bar and placed it beside her. Eat this when you can. And drink, he said, offering a warm flask. The girl nodded. Slightly but didn't move. Jack leaned back against the wall, staring at her. Who was she? Why was she here in the middle of nowhere, during a deadly storm? And who was following her? His scanner hadn't picked up any ships or life forms nearby. In the last 24 hours. That meant either she had hidden tech, or someone very smart was after her. Either way, Jack knew one thing. This night had just become a lot more complicated. The heater hummed softly as the storm outside roared louder. Inside the tent, warmth slowly returned, but silence still ruled the space. Jack sat cross-legged, quietly watching the alien girl who now rested with her eyes closed. Her breathing was steady, but her body twitched every few minutes like she was dreaming. Or remembering something bad. Jack didn't trust easily. But something about her had softened his caution. Still, he wasn't stupid. His eyes moved too. The pile of cloth beside her, what was left of her worn alien outfit. Something small glowed faintly beneath it. Careful not to wake her, Jack leaned over and pulled the cloth away. DEVICESMAL, L round. Silver, with alien symbols glowing in blue dot. It was no ordinary tool. It wasn't medical. It wasn't for warmth. This was tech, advanced tech. And it was active. Jack narrowed his eyes. "What are you hiding, girl?" He whispered dot suddenly. She stirred. Her eyes opened. Too late. She saw the device in his hand and shot up to grab it. Fast, too fast for someone who was near collapse an hour ago. Jack stood and raised his free hand. "Easy, I'm not stealing it." "Give it back," she said, her voice sharp now. "You don't understand." "I think I'm starting to," Jack replied. "This isn't just some survival tool. What is it?" She looked at him, breathing hard, but didn't answer. Jack didn't press further. He gently placed the device back beside her and stepped away. "If you don't want to talk, fine, but that thing has a signal. If it's active, someone might be tracking it." Her eyes widened. She grabbed the device and tapped it quickly. The blue light vanished. She hugged it close to her chest and sat down again. Shaking, Jack took a deep breath and sat too. The storm still screamed outside, but now the storm inside. The tent was louder. "Are you running from someone?" he asked again. She hesitated. Then finally she nodded. "Who?" She stared at the heater. "Hunters. They take girls like me. They erase us." Jack's stomach turned. "Why?" "They think we're dangerous." He stared at her. She looked small, fragile, scared. She didn't seem dangerous at all, but Jack had learned long ago that appearances meant nothing in the galaxy. "You have a name?" he asked, trying to soften his tone. She looked up at him. "Velara." "All right." "Velara, I'm Jack." He offered a small smile. "And you're safe here for now." She didn't smile back, but she relaxed a little. Jack noticed again how her skin shimmered softly under the heater's light. Not like normal skin, almost. Like energy moved beneath it. He had never seen anything like it. "What species are you?" he asked. Velara looked unsure. Then she whispered, "Half green." Jack blinked. "Half," she nodded. "My mother was human." That explained the English, and maybe the eyes. But the Kreen, that was unexpected. They were an ancient race, mysterious, powerful, and rarely seen. If Velara was telling the truth, she was a hybrid of two very different worlds, and hybrids like her were usually targets. No wonder she was hunted. Jack looked at the device again. "That thing, it's more than a signal, isn't it?" Velara didn't reply, but her silence confirmed it. Jack leaned back against the tent wall, letting out slow breath. This wasn't just a rescue. He had brought something dangerous into his camp. But it wasn't the kind of danger he could walk away from. Not with how scared she looked. Not with how she clutched that device like her life depended on it. "You can stay tonight," he said finally. "But if those hunters come looking, they will." She interrupted. Jack stared at her. "They always find me," she whispered. For the first time, Jack felt real fear crawl down his spine. Not fear for himself, but for what she had brought. With her, something big was coming. And this storm was just the beginning. The storm outside had calmed a little, but inside Jack's tent, the air felt colder. Velara sat silently, holding her device close. Her eyes were open, but distant, like she was listening for something far away. Jack had seen fear before. Soldiers, civilians, refugees, but this was different. This was someone who had been running for too long. Someone who had stopped trusting the universe. Jack tried to rest, but something kept him awake, a feeling. He turned off the tent light and activated the motion scanner near the door. Nothing yet. Still, he grabbed his blaster and kept it close. At exactly 3:17 local time. The scanner beeped. Movement. Outside. Jack snapped up and stared at the screen. Just one life form, Big, slow, heavy steps. Maybe 30 meters from the tent. He looked at Velara. She was already standing, eyes wide. "They found me," she said softly. Jack peeked through the tent flap, but saw nothing, just blowing snow. Still, the scanner didn't lie. He switched it to heat vision. There it was, a tall shape, almost 8 feet, moving steadily through the snowstorm. Its body radiated cold, not heat like it absorbed warmth instead of giving it. "What is that?" Jack whispered. Velara trembled. A shade hunter. He'd heard that name before. From smuggler stories. From soldiers drunk on old battlefields. Hunters that worked in silence, took what they were paid for, and left no one alive. Most thought they were myths. They tracked by scent, sound, and fear, Velara whispered. "They smell adrenaline." Jack's grip on his blaster tightened. "Then we better stay calm." Suddenly, the heater blinked low power. Jack tapped it, trying to keep it going. They couldn't afford to freeze. "Not now." Then came the sound. Low growl like metal scraping bone outside the tent. Jack stood slowly and gestured for Velara to get down. She knelt beside the gear pile, curling into the shadows. Jack shut off all lights, switched his blaster to silent mode, and took position by the entrance. Another sound. Scratch. A claw dragged lightly across the outer fabric. Velara shut her eyes. Lips trembling, Jack raised his weapon. The tent flap moved, just slightly, just enough for a shadow to stretch across the floor, and then, nothing. The presence outside stopped. Jack didn't move. Neither did Velara. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, the scanner showed the shape turning away, slowly, heading north. Jack exhaled silently. He didn't relax, but he lowered the blaster. "It's leaving." Velara didn't respond. She was staring at something behind him. Jack turned and froze. Inside the tent on the back wall, clawed letters had been cut into the fabric from the outside. Letters that glowed faint red. Alien. Runes. Velara walked slowly to the marks, touching them lightly. "What does it say?" Jack asked. Her voice was dry. "Return her, or we return. In blood." Jack's heart pounded. "They don't want to kill me yet," Velara said. "They want me alive, for now." Jack looked at the claw marks. "But they'll kill anyone who protects you." She nodded. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jack said, "You said there were hunters, plural." "That was just one." Velara looked at the door. "Yes, the others are close. They always hunt in threes." Jack opened the supply crate and started packing quickly. Food packs, medkits, emergency rations. A second heater core. "We're moving." He said, "Where?" "There's an old mine station 20 kilometers east. Abandoned, but deep underground. Hard to track movement there. I'll rig a decoy here to make them think we stayed." Velara didn't argue. She stood and started helping him pack. Jack paused. "You sure you can make the hike?" She nodded. "If I stay, I die." Jack loaded his blaster. "Then we don't stay." Outside, the wind started again, low and soft, like a whisper before a scream. They were running out of time, and they were definitely not alone anymore. They had walked for nearly 2 hours through the snow-covered plains of Zora 7. The wind had slowed, but the cold had not. Every breath felt like ice cutting their lungs. Jack's boots sank into the snow with every step, while Velara followed behind, lighter, quieter. Her feet barely made a sound. She didn't complain. Not once. Ahead, the outline of the abandoned mining station came into view. Torn metal, broken towers, and a long entrance tunnel leading underground. Jack raised his scanner. No life forms, no traps. It was empty. They slipped inside. The walls were rusted. Lights flickered. The air smelled of burnt wiring and old chemicals. But it was safe. For now, Jack sealed the main hatch and placed motion alarms at both ends of the tunnel. Then he lit a small heat core, just enough to warm the room. Valara sat on the floor and hugged her knees. Her eyes were tired. Her hands trembled not from cold, but from something deeper. Jack sat beside her and pulled out the silver device she had been carrying. He placed it between them. "You said they want you alive," he said quietly. "Why?" Valara didn't answer. Jack looked at the device. "This thing. It's not just a tracker, is it?" She slowly shook her head. "No." Jack tapped it lightly. "Then tell me what it is." "No more secrets, Valara. I let you into my tent. I left my camp. I'm risking my life. I deserve the truth." Valara reached out and touched the device. Her fingers glowed faint blue. A hum filled the room. The device rose into the air, slowly spinning. Then it spoke. "Universal translator activated. Language bridge detected. Terran standard." Jack blinked. "You had a translator the whole time?" "It was damaged," Valara said, her voice now smooth and clear, no longer broken. "It needed warmth to repair, time, energy." Jack's eyes narrowed. "So you could talk the whole time? You just chose not to?" Valara looked down. "Talking means trusting. And I didn't know if I could." The device hovered, spinning faster. Symbols and light patterns moved along. Its edges. Jack folded his arms. "Then talk now." Valara took a long breath. "I am the last daughter of the House Vare, once rulers of the Kreen Spiral. My people believed I was a mistake. Half-blood, weak. My mother, a human scientist, escaped with me after the war. She died when I was 10. Jack said nothing. Valara continued. "After her death, the Shade Hunters came. They work for the Shadow Courts, those who fear what I am. And what are you?" Jack asked, eyes fixed on her. Valara reached up slowly and touched the device again. Her skin glowed softly. Then her body rose 2 inches off the ground. Floating. Her eyes turned silver. Her voice echoed strangely, like 2 voices speaking at once. "I am not just a daughter, I am a key." Jack stood, startled. "Key to what?" Valara slowly returned to the ground. The glow faded. "They say I carry a signal in my blood. A genetic code left behind by the first ones. If I reach the central core of the galaxy's old network, I can unlock something ancient." Jack stepped back. "Like a weapon?" "No," she said. "Like knowledge. Power that was buried long ago. Some believe it could change the balance of the galaxy. Others want to destroy it forever." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "And these Shade Hunters, they want to erase you before that happens?" She nodded. "And now, you're caught in it." Jack turned away, pacing. He wasn't ready for this. He was just a scout, a mapper, a supply hauler. This wasn't his war. And yet, here he was, helping the last of a royal line, carrying a secret that could reshape the galaxy. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why come to my tent in the middle of nowhere?" Valara looked at him. "Because I saw you." He turned, in a vision. She whispered. "You were there standing beside me, holding back the darkness. You were the only human in the dream. You didn't run. You didn't fear me." Jack shook his head. "That's not possible." She smiled softly. "I didn't think so either. Until I saw your face through the snow." Jack stared at her. Suddenly, the device spun faster. Then stop. Double quotes warning. Hostile signals approaching. 3 life forms. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. Jack grabbed his blaster. "They're here." Valara stood, eyes steady now. "Then we finish this," she said. "Together." The translator device blinked red. Hostile approach confirmed. 3 life forms. Estimated time, 11 minutes. Jack didn't wait. He grabbed his blaster, loaded fresh cells, and tossed an extra to Valara. "Can you shoot?" Valara caught it, but shook her head. "I don't kill." Jack frowned. "You'll have to defend yourself." She raised her palm. "I can protect us my way." Jack didn't ask what that meant. He didn't have time. He opened the supply pack and tossed motion. Mines, heat decoys, and smoke capsules onto the floor. He knew this old mining station well. It had narrow tunnels, echoing chambers, and power vents big enough to crawl through. They had to use every inch of it. Velara moved to the far end of the control room and placed her hands on the wall. Her skin glowed faintly. "I can feel them," she whispered. "They're cold, hollow, like shadows wrapped in skin." Jack placed a mine near the front hatch and activated a smoke bomb just inside the entrance tunnel. "Let them feel us." "Back," he muttered. Suddenly dash clang. Metal echoed through the tunnel. They were here. Jack went silent. Velara stood behind him, the glowing translator hovering above her shoulder like a guardian eye. Jack whispered, "You stay back. Let me handle." The first strike. The door creaked. Something pressed against it. Then boom. The mine exploded. A gust of cold wind and black mist burst inside. Jack aimed his blaster into the smoke, heart racing. A shape appeared, tall, bone-thin, armor that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. A face like cracked stone with no eyes, only a black line where a mouth should be. A shade hunter. It didn't flinch from the blast. It stepped inside, slow and calm. Jack fired twice. The first bolt bounced off. The second hit its shoulder, making it stumble. But it didn't fall. It raised its hand, and the air bent. A pressure wave slammed into Jack, throwing him across the room. He crashed into the wall and groaned in pain. The creature turned toward Velara. She didn't move. Instead, she whispered something ancient and raised her hand. A pulse of blue energy rushed from her chest, forming a dome between her and the creature. The shade slammed into it and stopped. It hissed, a dry rattling sound, then stepped back. Another shape entered behind it, then a third. All three hunters were now inside. Jack staggered to his feet, his shoulder bleeding. He fired again, aiming at the vents above. The bolts hit a support. Pipe steam burst out, blinding the room in thick fog. "Run!" he shouted to Velara, but she didn't run. She stepped forward. Her voice changed, calm, yet commanding. "You are not allowed here," she said in the old Kreen tongue. The hunters froze. The lead one tilted its head. "Your blood is impure. You carry the broken code. You are not queen." Velara's eyes turned silver again. "I carry more than blood. I carry memory. I carry choice." She raised a device. It glowed brighter than ever before, and then released a wave of sound. Not loud, but deep, felt in bones, not ears. The shade hunters stumbled back, hissing. Jack took his chance. He leapt forward, fired straight into one of their chests. This time, the blast worked. The creature fell backward and shattered into cold dust. One down. The other two charged. Velara dropped to her knees, focusing all her energy into the device. It formed a shield around Jack, just in time to block the claws of the second shade. Jack rolled, aimed upward, and shot again. Hit the neck. The creature howled and fell to its knees. Velara gasped. Blood dripped from her nose. Her hands shook. "I can't hold the field much longer." The last hunter growled and leapt straight at her. Shouted, fired, but missed. Too fast, too close. But Velara stood up, face pale, eyes glowing like stars, and whispered one word: "Enough." The device flared bright as a sun. The final shade froze mid-air, turned to stone, and shattered. Silence. Only Jack's heavy breathing and the slow flicker of emergency lights. Velara fell to the floor, weak, drained. Jack ran to her and caught her just before she collapsed. "Velara," she opened her eyes weakly. "I'm still here." He nodded, holding her close. "You stopped them. You saved us." She looked at the remains of the shade dust. "No, they were scouts." Jack stiffened. "Scouts?" She nodded. "The real hunter is still coming." The mining station was silent again. But the silence didn't bring peace. It brought tension. Jack paced near the flickering console, his eyes on the motion scanner. The shade hunters were gone, turned to ash, but Valara's warning echoed in his mind. The real hunter is still coming. He looked back at her. She lay wrapped in a thermal blanket, her skin pale and her eyes half closed. The use of her powers had drained her. She looked fragile now, like a dying flame. Jack knelt beside her. "You need rest." Valara gave a faint smile. "There is no time." "You saved me," he said softly. She didn't reply. Jack reached into his pack and pulled out a nutrient injector. "Here, you need this more than I do." She took it slowly, hands shaking, and pressed it to her neck. The serum hissed as it entered her veins. A little color returned to her cheeks. "I thought you said you don't fight." Jack whispered. "I don't," she replied. "But I protect." He nodded and stood up, walking back to the scanner. For a moment, the screen showed nothing. Then, red dot appeared. Jack leaned in. It was large, too large. It wasn't walking, it was gliding. Moving straight toward them, one life form. But more powerful than the last three combined. Estimated time, 4 minutes. Jack cursed under his breath. "It's coming." Valara sat up slowly. "The Archhunter." Jack turned. "That's the leader?" She nodded. "The one who controls the others, stronger, older, smarter. I was hoping it wouldn't come itself." Jack grabbed his blaster and checked the last energy cell. Only 32% charge left. Not enough. He looked at Valara. "If I distract it, can you run?" "No. You'll die if you stay." "I'll die if I run." Jack stared at her, frustrated. "Why are you like this?" She met his eyes. "Because you're the only person who ever stayed." That silenced him. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The red dot on the scanner was at the outer hatch. Jack raised his blaster and stood in front of Valara. "Then we finish this together." The metal door bent inward like something was pressing from the other side without touching it. Then boom. It exploded open. The Archhunter stepped through, twice as tall as the others. Cloaked in black, its body seemed to move like liquid and shadow at the same time. It had no face, just a glowing void where its head should be. It didn't walk. It hovered. It didn't speak. It radiated cold and hate like a storm. Jack fired. The blaster bolt vanished into the thing's chest. Like light swallowed by night. It raised one long hand and Jack was lifted into the air by force. Choking. Frozen. Unable to move. The Archhunter tilted its head toward Valara. She crawled forward on her knees, barely able to stand. "Stop," she whispered. The creature didn't pause. Jack gasped, his vision blurred. Blood trickled from his nose. Valara's hand trembled. She reached for the translator, but it was too far. She closed her eyes and began to sing. A single note. Soft, deep, alien. The air vibrat. He did. The creature froze. She sang again. Louder. The walls shimmered. The shadows flickered. Then her body lifted off the ground, slowly rising as her skin turned glowing silver. Her eyes flared like suns. Her voice echoed across dimensions. "You do not own me." The Archhunter shrieked a sound that cracked the walls. Valara raised both hands. From her chest, a beam of pure white light burst forth, blinding and sharp. It hit the creature in the center. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then, the Archhunter screamed. Its body cracked. Light poured from inside. Then it exploded. Black smoke filled the room, then vanished. Jack fell to the floor, gasping. Valara dropped beside him, weak but alive. He looked at her, eyes wide. "What was that?" She smiled faintly. "The song of the old ones my mother taught me, just in case." Jack pulled her into his arms. "You saved me again." She rested her head on his shoulder. "No," she whispered. "This time I saved us." The battle was over. Ash and broken metal lay scattered across the mining station. The cold crept in again, but this time it felt distant, like the world had stopped holding its breath. Jack sat beside Valara, both of them wrapped in silence. His body ached, his blaster was empty, and his mind still struggled to believe what had just happened. She had saved him, not with a weapon, not with force, but with a voice, a light, and something older than war. Valara rested her head against the wall, her eyes half closed. She looked peaceful, and tired. Too tired. Jack leaned closer. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "The song, it takes everything. I'll need time to recover." Jack looked down at his hands. They were shaking. "I thought I was helping a stranger," he said quietly. "But it feels like I stepped into something much bigger." "You did," she whispered. He waited, giving her space to speak. And finally, "She did. I didn't come to your tent by accident," she said. "I didn't stumble and lost. I was guided." Jack frowned. "By what?" "My mother's memory," she said softly. "Before she died, she gave me the device, not just to protect me, but to lead me to you." Jack's heart skipped. She said, "If the hunters ever found me, only one kind of soul could stand with me. A human who had no reason to fight, but chose to anyway." Jack looked into her glowing eyes. "You're the only one I've seen who didn't ask what I could give. You just opened the flap." Jack gave a weak smile. "You were freezing. What else was I supposed to do?" "That's exactly why it had to be you." Jack was quiet for a moment. "So what now? They're gone. But for how long?" "Won't more come?" Valara nodded. "Yes, the Shadow Courts will send others. They always do. But now, they'll fear me." "And what about the device? The signal? That key you carry?" Valara opened her hand. The translator device floated once more, but it looked different now. Opened, almost like a flower, glowing from within. She whispered, "It's no longer a beacon. It's a bond." "A bond?" Valara looked at him. "It responded to your presence. It changed shape when you held it near me. That only happens when trust is real. When two are linked by fate." Jack stared at the floating object. It now shimmered in two colors, blue and gold. "It chose us?" he asked. "No," she replied gently. "We chose each other. That's the only power it listens to." He took a deep breath. "So what does that mean for me?" "It means," she said, "you're part of this now, whether you like it or not." Jack laughed softly. "Guess I'm not just a supply scout anymore." She smiled. "You're more than you think." Jack leaned back and looked up at the cracked ceiling. Silence returned. But now, it wasn't empty, it was peaceful. After a while, Jack spoke again. "You know, I used to think the galaxy was cold. Not just the weather, but the people. Everyone looking out for themselves. No one caring who dies next." Valara looked at him. "But then you walked into my tent, and everything changed." She took his hand softly, without words. Jack didn't pull away. He didn't need to. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. And neither did she. Far beyond the mining station, stars continued to burn in silence. But something new had awakened between them, something stronger than fear, deeper than blood, a bond made not by destiny, but by choice. And sometimes, in a galaxy full of darkness, that was enough to light the way.